Yesterday, some people calling themselves the Patriots. We have Emeka Anyaku, we have the likes of Shehu Soni, we have Michael Zakome. You know, I mean, these people, they call themselves the Patriots. They went to the president. They went to beg the president for a constitutional review, or let me say, a new constitution. Mr. Tinubu, the past 10 days, the Nigerian youth took to the streets to demand for a new constitution. However, these same old men, they say that the youth don't know what they are doing. But yesterday, surprisingly, we saw them demanding for the same thing. What's your take on that?
That tells you that it's not even, it didn't even start now. It has been something that has been on the line, talking about how to return Nigeria to restructuring, through federalism, autonomy, regionalism, and the rest of them. You know, it has been something that have been advocating for at every point in time. Remember, such issue also came under Buhari's government, where they tendered such thing at the end of the day. But you can see from the perspective of the Afenifere leader, talking about Pa Ayo himself, you know that the leaders actually knew that these things need to be put in place. How would they put in place? Is by getting the government to buy into it, even though that a lot of some regions are totally against it because of what they are benefiting or what they feel that they are going to lose. If eventually we return to regionalism, we return to maybe a new constitution where people can sit down and say, okay, this is Nigerian constitution. And take note of that we have been using British constitution for a very long time. The only thing we do on that constitution is amendment. And that was why the Gani Adams and the rest of them were advocating that Nigerians, there's need for Nigerians to sit down and be able to write their own constitution. It is very important they do. And these patriots are seen as people who are patriotic, who are nationalistic in reasoning and in thinking. And they want this thing to be very effective. Now, nobody can tell you that this present constitution is not something that Nigerians are benefiting from. Nobody can tell you that. Nigerians are not benefiting from the present constitution. Even in 1999 constitution, if you look at it, those were an extension of the military constitution and the British constitution they gave to us. So that was what Jonathan wanted to do as at that time. Jonathan called for a national confab, you know, where Nigeria will sit down and outline those issues that have kept the country in comatose for a very long time. So that was why we need to understand that if we don't do this in the way it is, if we don't do it very well, if we don't be able to sit down and make sure that this country is being put in a proper perspective for economic and political development, where every Nigerian can be represented, including those who are in the farm, including those who are somewhere, including the unborn. If you look at the present constitution of Nigeria currently now, you cannot find any space. You cannot find the woman who is struggling to survive in that constitution. You cannot find a trader in that constitution. You only find those who are looting the treasury of this country in that constitution. You can only find those who want them to be who see Nigeria as their own, you know, heritage, who see Nigeria as their own property. They can go anyhow and they do anyhow at the end of the day. So I'm in support of that anyway. But there are certain things we needed to be done, because if you cannot push for this constitution currently now, for a new constitution where the indigenous people of Nigeria will sit down and be able to draft that constitution, it is going to take a very long time. It might get to the point where, you know, it will certainly going to enjoy one third, and the end of the day, without being told, it can be balkanized. So to that effect, let us implement the Obasanjo's constitution report. Then let us look deeply into the 2014 confab. By the time we merge this thing together, we can look at all those areas in that constitution currently now and see how we can, you know, adjust, amend, pending when we are going to reconcile why the indigenous constitution that will be powered by Nigerians themselves. So I want to commend Emeka Ayoko, the former Commonwealth president, and others who has deemed it very fit, to continue to get the federal government attention on the need, because all these things that are happening, it might lead to a point where Nigeria will be no more at the end of the day.
But Mr. Chinedu, there was a response from one of the prominent leaders in the north. I think Shekaru, the first governor after this Fourth Republic. I think Ibrahim Shekaru, the former governor of Kano State. He said that Nigeria does not need a new constitution. That what we need is actually a new attitude towards governance. Do you agree with Shekaru?
No, I would not want to agree that, because the people have to be powered. People need to define themselves, and it has been a major problem here because at every point in time, the North kicks against restructuring. The North also kick against having a new constitution. The North also kick against regionalism, because they felt that they don't want to leave that space where oil is being produced, where the oil is being seen as the major cash cow for everybody.
Are you saying they are afraid because of oil money, but they have arable land?
Yes, that's what I'm telling you. Nigerian government, Nigerian system does not really work that way for now, because if you talk about area land for agriculture, there's no region that doesn't have it.
But we know the North have
it might look like that. There's no region that doesn't have the kind of land that can power agriculture, that can take care of every region. But it's been seen that the North has majority of the land, and they are into farming. That's okay. But the fact is that even in that farming, the farming itself needs constitution, needs legality to work perfectly. So you can see that everything still boils down to where are we going at the end of the day. Nigerians, first of all, no matter how you look at it, have never had a constitution of their own. Nigerians have never sit down and said, this is the rules and regulations that we want to be governed with. At this time, it's wrong.
After 62 years.
And that is why we keep on having different challenges at different points, politically and otherwise. In terms of development, zero. Because Nigerians have never sit down and said this is what they want. If pushing for a new constitution is going to break Nigeria, let it break. Because I don't see the reason why the Northerners are always against having something that can, even in your own house, as a father, as a mother, if you don't have rules and even companies, if they don't have rules and regulations that governs them, there's no how they can operate. So we need to jettison this British system constitution, jettison this military constitution, that was extended from the British constitution, that has been amended, and at the end of the day, nothing. What does it take? And even the one that we have been championed by Nigerians themselves, talking about the constitutional conference under Jonathan 2014, was done by Buhari, because he knew that implementing it looks like they are going to lose their grip on oil wells in the eastern part of the country. So it's a major issue. So and now we are having a southern president, so to say. I think it is the best thing for them to get the consciousness of the presidency towards making Nigeria a better nation. And until that is being done, we continue to struggle over survival. We continue to struggle politically. We continue to struggle even to elect credibility into the position of authority. And everything boils down in what we have, or what we have written for ourselves as constitution, or what we have as there's some countries that doesn't even have constitution. They are operating very well. But Nigeria, Nigerian factor always plays in every situation, in everything we are trying to get to put Nigeria in order. So the best thing for us to do now is to look at those ways, those means, those things we needed to do, like the issue of the constitution. Very important. We know what Nigerians went through before we were able to have that 2014 cover. We know the amount of resources. Look at this Obasanjo reports too. How to cut the cost of governance and be able to bring make sure that every Nigerian participate in the dividend of democracy. They are Nigerians, they are citizens, but often and all they are always being denied of that right of citizen.
Mr. Obasanjo, or should I say former President Obasanjo, yesterday, I don't know if it's hypocrisy or maybe he's saying the truth, because we both know that Obasanjo has had over 10 years to change the Nigerian narrative. He said Nigeria is still on gunpowder, that unless the leaders change the constitution and engage the Gen Zs, that Nigeria will explode. Mr. Tinubu, what's your take about Obasanjo?
It's not even going to explode. Nigeria is already on a bomb, and waiting to explode. If he says sitting on a cake of gunpowder, well, but my brother, we are no longer. We are moved from that point. We are sitting on a bomb, on a nuclear bomb, on an economic bomb, on a political bomb. On the rise of anarchy if care is not taken. And you can see what is happening in the presidency now. How would you properly define those things now? Obasanjo coming to say yes, Obasanjo need to move out from the military influence first, having taken over power from the military, and there was a lot of things that need to be addressed at that particular time. So you can see that Obasanjo years, democratic years in governance had an impact.
Why did he change the constitution? Why did he reform the Nigerian system? Why is he preaching that now when he has had the opportunity in the past?
There's no time that you will say that those things are not on the issue. Remember that there was 1999 constitution, which was as fresh as when Obasanjo assumed power. That was 1999 constitution. If you look at that constitution, it was tried to an extent that the little impact we are having today until APC came into power was as a result of that amendment of the 1999 constitution.
My question to you, I'm sorry, Mr. Chief. My question to you is, after his first tenure, I haven't seen the failure of the 1999 constitution. Why didn't Obasanjo take that bold step? Why didn't he encourage Jonathan or Yar'Adua? Because Obasanjo had been the most fortunate person to lead Nigeria. He has had several opportunities. He has had 3 chances to correct the errors. So, is it not hypocrisy for this man to telling us now that Nigeria is on this?
I will not say it is hypocrisy now, because the issue on ground is very diabolical for Nigeria now. And you can see that we just came out from the military rule. A lot of things went wrong. There's need for political stability. There's need for national consciousness, and that was what Obasanjo was trying to do. There's need to create institutions. That was what Obasanjo was trying to do, And even at that point, that he left power and handed over to Yar'Adua, it became very prominent and significant that the issue of constitution should be looked into, out of which Jonathan did to an extent, and it was then believed that confab was a major factor that will uplift the Nigerian system in all ramifications. What did he not do? Because of that 2014 confab is one of the reasons why Jonathan was voted out of power, because the North does not want it, using the Southwest. So now that a Southern president is currently in the presidency now, I think it is also a high time for somebody like Obasanjo, in his wisdom, deem it fit to remind the presidency on the need for Nigerians, to look into some of these things, using the likes of Emeka Anyako, who is an international figure that everybody should be able to listen to. Emeka Anyako does not need anybody to tell you that what he's trying to do is not positive. It's a commendable move for him and for Nigeria. But it's left for the man there to decide actually if he's going to go towards that direction without any the fear of the North or the fear of the second term at the end of the day.
Tinubu responded to Ayaku immediately after the message was delivered by the same Ayaku. He said, Ayaku, yes, I understand we have to restructure Nigeria, but you have to give me time. These two policies, I want to see the end of it.
It's firing. Tinubu is firing from different canon. You know, he just want a situation where he will decarbonize the Nigerian factor that is coming from the north. So, and he doesn't want to repeat the mistake of the subsidy. You know, where everything was being muddled up at the end of the day. So, if he's asking for time, it means he's also seeking consultation from the North themselves also on the issue, because you can see that the issue of regionalism on one side also trending, the issue of restructuring also at the other end. There's also issue of constitution reform on that end, and there is this holistic understanding that if I am to go towards this direction, if I miss this target, I will not miss this one. And that is why, both policies or both programs, are running at different steam as I'm talking to you now. So, if peradventure, is going to have a direct effect on his government, it will go to the journalism. If that one does not work, it can move to the structure and move to trying to look at what Obasanjo is talking about at this point in time, because we actually need it. I remember, these are the people who have benefited so much from Nigeria, and for Nigeria to die just like that, it will be the labor of our heroes past and not become in vain.
Thank you very much for that beautiful submission, Mr. Chinedu. Mr. Matthew, quickly, what's your reaction to Obasanjo's, statement yesterday saying that Nigeria is sitting on a gun of gunpowder, considering the fact that Obasanjo happens to be the only leader who has had over 1 decade to rule the country and never effected all these things that he's preaching today? What's your reaction? Is it hypocrisy or the truth?
I think Obasanjo is partially correct. The reason I would say is partially correct is Obasanjo, as the president of this country, we saw some positive impact he created. Let me dwell on the issue of our debt. We understand that currently the major bane of our problem is our debt. To the extent that this government told us that before they came on board, we were spending 95% of our national earnings to service debt. And we are not even talking about paying the capital to service debt. According to them, based on their approach and intervention and policies, it have reduced to about 68%. I'm talking about our earnings, national earnings rising to service debt. Obasanjo ran a government that pursued debt cancellation, and we saw International Monetary Fund, World Bank allowing Nigeria to walk out of the debt we were owing before Obasanjo came on board. So when Obasanjo speak in that trajectory, I think it's correct. He was a man who has proven that he had disdain for Nigeria as an entity going to debt. We saw it in practical terms, how he managed the situation. You may say Anokoja was in his team, but he was the head. So to that extent, I think Obasanjo is justified to speak in that direction. Now, looking at that, Nigeria is sitting on a keg of gunpowder. It is irrespective of whether Obasanjo had the privilege and opportunity to rule Nigeria more than any other Nigerian. The issue is you cannot throw away the baby with the bathwater. You might say he's not correct in some of his area of his how he handled Nigeria as a person, but look at the message and leave the messenger. Yes, I agree with him. Nigeria is sitting on a keg of gunpowder on many fronts. One, the issue of hunger. Look at how this government tried without success in trying to stop this protest. I may not have the record, I may not have the intel, I may not have the information, but there's speculation out there that the government lobbied with money to see whether they could stop protesters from protesting. Beyond lobbying, we saw the paramilitary agencies, we saw police, we saw DSS, we saw the army coming out to tell Nigerians that they should not come out and protest. I'm telling you, this is a legitimate right of citizens. I'm talking about peaceful protest. At different point in time, police came out to give reason why people should not protest. We saw the army came out. We saw DSS came out. At a point, we saw Honest Tinubu coming out to ask Nigerians not to protest. We saw Afenifere, a version of it, under leadership of I think Fakerante or so, came out to say people should not protest. We saw Arewa Consultative Forum coming out to say people should not protest. We saw some emirs, traditional rulers, even Abu Abini. So it's going to show that the government lobbied. Even after that level of lobbying, let us even assume money was not involved. Even after that level of lobbying, we saw Nigerians in that number to come out to protest. It tells that something is fundamentally wrong. Nigeria is actually sitting on a keg of gunpowder on that angle. Now, that is on welfare of Nigerians. Do not forget that the constitution is clear about what shall be permanent purpose of governance, welfare of Nigerians and their security. Now, I've spoken on the area of welfare, and the government policy is one that caused this. The government told us, they say, we are getting 4 trillion from subsidy removal on gasoline every year. We are getting another 4 trillion from policy of unification of FS at the official window. At the end of the year, that is 8 trillion. And the government have told us that this will be used to address the welfare of Nigerians. And as we speak, we are not seeing anything in that regard. Do not forget that the government, when the president addressed Nigerians, I'm talking about Senator Bola Tinubu, told us that they have spent 570 billion to cushion the effect or hardship of their policies on Nigerians. And this money they claim they sent through the states. Sheikh Makinde came out the other day to tell us that the statement from federal government is misleading. That the money is actually from World Bank and that it is in contingent, meaning they have spent that money before, federal World Bank embossing them. And the federal government merely acted as an intermediary. So I'm still telling you that when it comes to welfare of Nigerians, even the money they claim they are spending is not getting to the people, not because the governors may not want it to get to the people this time around, but because the governors are claiming that this money they already spent in the past meant for COVID-19, that the money they now receive is to reimburse, meaning they are taking that money back to where they spent it, meaning the money is not meant for the people to address their concerns. So you see that Nigeria is actually sitting on a keg of gunpowder when it comes to the welfare of Nigerians. Now let us look at security. Security of lives and property is a major issue for any Nigerian if you want to face the truth, you want to face the fact. As we speak, what we normally see in the northern part of the country, insecurity coming from herders against host communities, is already happening in the southern part of the country. I can categorically tell you with confidence that in Delta State, in a local government called Eka North East, the local government of the immediate past governor of Delta State, I'm talking about Senator Ato Ifeanyi Okowa, is being ravaged by excesses of herders. To the point that some farming communities can no longer access their farm. And this, we have a president that swore to oath to protect lives and property. You have Fulani herdsmen coming far away from the north, and we have a situation where even in the past, the former government of Muhammadu Buhari had alluded to the fact that these are herders who come from other parts of the world. I'm talking about Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and they come into the country. We have a country that is run by law. They move around with AK-47, move around. There are so many stories surrounding their excesses in Delta State that if I say it here, it may be against a YouTube policy. There's no need going into all that. Off camera, I can relate that with you. What I'm trying to say is the security of life and property is a major issue. I cannot stop saying this. I had a conversation with someone from Benue who said he buy rice, beans, garri, yam from Lagos State and send back to village. What does that tell you?
Very sad.
It's a sad reminder of the problem, the hardship, the situation people are passing through in Benue. Benue is the basket food of the nation. So, in essence, we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. I totally agree with Obasanjo.
But despite the advice from Obasanjo, in this hardship, Tinubu seems not to yield. Yesterday, Emeka Anyaku approached him and he asked him that Tinubu, I think we need to, as a matter of urgency, constitute a council that will take a look at the constitution. But it seems this constitution needs to be changed for Nigeria to move forward. But Tinubu said that he is not ready, that he wants this our fuel subsidy removal and dollar unification to yield result first before he start looking at the constitution. What's your reaction to that?
I'm not surprised, because if you tinker with the constitution, you are already automatically tinkering with the power of the status quo and with the power and ability of those in power to manipulate the system to get back to power in 2027. I listened to a former senator from Kaduna talking about Shehu Sani, who said the only president in Nigeria that instituted a program, a policy that affected him is Goodluck Jonathan, when he introduced beavers, when he introduced Carida. No, sorry, not beavers, Carida. And Carida was like a game changer that questioned the power to manipulate election by the powers that be. And that saw Jonathan losing the election. So in the same way, I don't see a Tinubu that knows the importance of power, that value power, that cherishes power, to allow a process that will question the ability or the privilege to manipulate the system to say true. So I don't see a Tinubu doing it for now.
So, I mean, let me react to that statement. Are you saying Tinubu will not sign electronic transmission of votes?
I am saying it, and I want Tinubu to prove me wrong. I'm saying that Tinubu will not and will never sign electronic transfer of results that remove the power of discretion from INEC until he is ready to leave office. Do not forget that Muhammadu Buhari, when people were yearning for amendment of the Electoral Act, particularly that area that
even if Nigerians protest,
I don't think protest can solve it. But I want to remind you, Mr. Lee, even when Nigerians were demanding that allow us have electronic transfer of election results, I'm talking about under Muhammadu Buhari, throughout his first tenure, he paid deaf ear to it. He developed his skin. He was not ready to do it, and he didn't do it. It was at the twilight of his administration where he knew he was not going to contest, that he allowed to say true. And at the end of the day, they merely surrendered that power of who and how to transmit the election result to INEC. Look at how INEC messed up with that power of discretion. That's why we are even calling now that INEC is not responsible enough to parade discretionary power when it comes to how to determine the mode of transmission of election result. Because before the election, INEC made us understand that they were going to transmit the election results electronically. They reneged at the nick of time, and of course that's the basis of which PDP, Labour Party challenged the election result up to Supreme Court. Though, as it stands, Supreme Court already legitimized Tinubu as the president. But in the mind of Nigerians, his presidency is questionable.
Thank you very much for that brilliant submission, Mr. Matthew.
Thank you for having me.